What's up, YouTube? This is the first episode of the Full Send Show. I'm Bryson Beaver. You might be asking, what the heck does full send even mean? I've never heard of that. It sounds like you're sending a package. Watch this. All right, so we got this guy. He's filming on like a 1960s video recorder, which is already so hardcore. Not sure how he got the red tent, but you know this is about to be hardcore. So here he is. He's coming in hot towards this ramp. Don't be like this guy in the blue. This guy in the blue is just watching other people live their dreams. He's just on the lift, acting pretty lame, and this guy's about to go full send on this house. Watch this. Crushed the roof, got a pole left on the roof. Amazing. You know, really my question for him was, what were you going to do once you got on the roof? But, you know, that's really the essence of a full send. You don't have to know what's going to happen after you send it. All right, here's a skiing tip for you. Sorry that this was recorded on a Motorola Razr, but if you get big air on skis, you want to land on an incline. Landing on flat ground is like falling out of a 4-story window. You know, sometimes in life, the best way to find out how to full send is to watch people not send it, like this guy in the red. Absolutely ridiculous. Gets like a ½ inch of air. Probably the exact antithesis of what I would classify as a full send. However, this next guy that's coming down the hill is my absolute idol. He is like the Lance Armstrong of skiing, never braking, going full speed. And he is about to absolutely destroy both of his knees. Watch this. He's going to roll the windows up in the car, roll, and then both of his knees are going to pop out of his legs right here. But no one can ever fault him for not sending it because he got the biggest air of his life. And maybe his ski season's over, but not his send season, if you know what I mean. The wise degenerates at the Urban Dictionary say that a full send is to go all out, not caring at all about the consequences, and that is what I'm about. Just kidding. You should probably consider consequences sometimes. This show is about celebrating people who are willing to go all out, who are willing to say what nobody else will say, who are willing to live dreams that nobody else will live, who are not willing to let fear dictate how they express themselves and how they live an awesome life. I think America has lost their perception of what it means to dream. I think way too many of us are just going through life. We're not happy with where we're at. We're not happy with our jobs. We're not happy with where we live. We're not happy. And instead of creating, instead of dreaming, instead of saying, you know, what am I created for? What am I supposed to be doing on the earth? We just sit there and we just soak in our safety. And really, I want to see America break out of that. I want to see America and each of us realize that we're created for so much more than just mediocrity, just so much more than just making it by, so much more than just subsistence. The purpose of this channel really at the end of the day is to encourage people. It's in no way to say, you know, you should be doing better, you should be doing this. Really, it's creating an environment where we can completely be our true selves, where we can look at ourselves in the mirror and be like, you know what, this is who I am, these are the opinions that I have, this is where I'm coming from, and that's okay. And if somebody else is offended by that, we can't change that. All we can do is be ourselves. All we can do is be true to who God's created us to be, and we have to let the chips fall where they fall. So I'm really hoping on this channel to be able to share about my own story and other people's stories with things like mental health, about addiction, about just the journey of life. Life is completely messy and completely like imperfect at all times, and sometimes the world acts so shocked when people turn up imperfect. And I want this to be a place where, you know, we're not glorifying weakness, but where we can openly talk about it and where we can talk about how we've grown through it and how we've overcome. So as the first episode, I thought it would be only fitting to give you guys a little bit of background of my recent journey. As some of you know, I finished the Pacific Crest Trail in October 2020, and so I wanted to give you guys a little bit of background of kind of my journey up to that. I've had a lot of questions from a lot of people about that, so I'd love to talk about that, and then give you guys a little bit of background into where I'm at now and where I'm going. So to catch you guys up a little bit in my life, this picture was taken in May of 2018. I had just graduated from Miami of Ohio with a degree in finance and business economics. I think going to college was a great decision for me. The feeling of paying an institution thousands of dollars so you can take art classes alongside your business courses is really a life-changing experience and really teaches you a lot about life. But regardless, I still feel to this day that God's given me gifts and skills in the areas that I majored in, and I'm extremely grateful for the education that it provided me. These are my parents. I love them to death. And here's the face of someone who knows nothing about life or really about anything. Take notes. Miami provided me with some of the most amazing friends I could ask for in the world. I matured and grew so much during these 4 years. And I have just way too many lifelong friends now. We are always, every year, we're going out and doing reunion camping trips. And all those people are people that I can always just catch right back up with. And I'm really grateful for that. Shortly after I graduated, 3 of my best friends conspired against me, and they all got married to amazing women within 3 months of each other. And so I'm the only single one left. Alex, Phil, Jordan, I love you guys a lot. But job wise, I took a job out of school at an asset management firm in St. Louis, which paid me way too much money and really took care of me at an amazing degree. The people that I worked with were really amazing. They gave me free lunch every day. You could wear khaki shorts to the office. The holiday parties and stuff were really incredible, and the benefits were incredible. Really can't say enough about how well that company treated their employees, particularly given how a lot of companies treat their employees today. I got a promotion within the first year and really felt like I had a future within the company. So me subsequently leaving had nothing to do with that. So everything sounds amazing, right? I have friends, money, a great job. I'm living in St. Louis, and things are going really well. And really, I didn't feel like my external world gave me any room to be unhappy. But tell you the truth, I was absolutely miserable. Since 2014, I've struggled with severe depression almost every day, on top of anxiety and OCD type tendencies. On top of that, I have suffered from severe fatigue for years that's made me feel like practically like I have the flu all the time. I'll sleep for like 10, 12 hours at night, and I'll get up and I'll pretty much feel like I haven't slept. So really the last 6-7 years have been extremely difficult for me. And so by the end of 2019, I was in a place in life where really, no matter how great my exterior life got, I still had no enjoyment of being alive. I tried pills, counseling, therapy, pretty much you name it. I've tried it. So many doctors tried to fix me, particularly like my fatigue. Nothing really worked. I would make some small progress. Honestly, to be honest, I think therapy and counseling was the thing that made the biggest difference for me. So shout out to my therapist. But I was praying frequently that God would help me and just solve whatever was going on. But really, like, I didn't feel like any of the progress I was making was significant enough to really change my quality of life. And at the end of the day, after like years of that, you just start feeling unfixable. You feel like your problem or whatever's going on with you is like, you feel like unique almost in a bad way. You're like, other people can take pills and feel better, but I can't. Here's a picture of a guy putting his head between 2 pieces of bread, which is really startling. I simply searched man looking sad, and this came up. So if anyone has any ideas on what the heck this means, please leave me a comment. I don't think I'm going to be able to sleep tonight with this picture in my head. So being at this place mentally, really my job was killing me. Even though it was an amazing job, working at a desk 45 hours a week seemed completely meaningless to me, and only having about 3 weeks a year to actually do the things that I wanted to do really wasn't enough. I just felt like I was made for a lot more. I was made to be more creative, to be outside more. I felt that like working at a desk for the next 50 years made me just dread my future. And so to me, like, either your job increases your livelihood or destroys your livelihood. And I didn't feel like mine was making my life any better. So in September of 2019, another one of my friends decided to get married. Do you see a theme here? Shout out to Scott and Maddie Lentz. So I flew out to California to be in their wedding. And after the wedding, I went with my friend Blake to Yosemite for some hiking. First off, Yosemite is like the most amazing place on the planet. I've been there multiple times. If you've never been, you need to go. It is really life-changing, and I'm kind of a mountain snob. Like, I'll tell you, there's a lot of places that other people would see that think they're amazing, and I'd probably be like, but Yosemite's epic. So here's a picture of Blake. He unfortunately couldn't hike with me because of severe altitude sickness. Shout out, Blake. Sorry about that. So I set off by myself, and really, God ended up putting people in my life on that trip that really changed my life. Here's a picture of Allison and Lauren. I met them on the first day, and they allowed me to hike with them for the next days. And really, the conversations that we had, I think, really changed my life. They're both at a very similar place in me in life at the time, where they were considering quitting their jobs. They were really reevaluating what it meant to live and what they wanted to be doing with their life. And so really, they encouraged me to think outside the box, and it made me feel like I wasn't completely crazy for kind of hating my job. And I don't really know on what part of that trip the idea of hiking the Pacific Crest Trail came up. I'll call the Pacific Crest Trail the PCT going forward. But it kind of came up in my mind. I was out there hiking very close to it and kind of started throwing around the idea. And I was kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever do that. But, as time went on, I realized, I was like, I kind of need some time off. I don't think I'm a firm believer that sometimes when you're in the daily grind, it really just doesn't give you enough emotional or mental capacity to have a different perspective and to think about what you might want to do. And so I knew I needed some time off to figure out what I wanted to do with the next steps in my life. And I thought, well, if I'm going to take time off, taking 5 months off and going hiking, with hiking being something I really love, sounds like a really great opportunity. So, as time went on, kind of coming back from that trip, I think I kind of came to the conclusion, that the next spring I was going to quit my job and I was going to go do something of that sort. And as time went on, I think the PCT just started making more and more sense the more research I did on it. And so, I felt like God was leading me to do that. I felt like God was on it. And so I decided that, that was what I wanted to do. So fast forward to April 2020, the pandemic is in full swing and the economy closes like 2 weeks before my last day at work. Like I'd already given my notice and everything. And the economy closes down. They send me home from work. So my last 2 weeks at work, I'm working from home. Awesome timing, really amazing timing. I think nothing quite tests you like, I think the uncertainty of a pandemic really tests you. I think, it's one thing to quit your job that's high paying to start making no money when things are really steady. But when you don't know really how any of this is going to turn out, it really it heightens your anxiety. And so I was really anxious for a while. And on top of that, the Pacific Crest Trail organization, which runs and takes care of the PCT, came out and pretty much told people they weren't allowed to hike in 2020 because of the pandemic. So I'm like, what the heck am I supposed to do now? I've already quit my job, and now apparently we're not allowed to hike. But so I was kind of sitting there. I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, and I hadn't booked my flight yet, and so one day, like late April, my mom was on Facebook and she found a page called Still Hiking the PCT 2020, no joke. And it's literally just a Facebook page of people who are still hiking regardless. And I realized that a bunch of people were still doing it, and I thought about it and I was like, I think it's going to be equally, if not more safe for me to be on a trail than to be in society. And as far as the pandemic goes. And so, I decided, I just felt like that was what I was supposed to do. I'd already like made the jump. I'd already quit my job. And so, I went full send on it. So on May 7th, 2020, I officially got on trail. So if you don't know anything about the PCT is a trail that goes from the Mexico border to the Canadian border. It's 2,650 miles long. And so it goes through, there's 5 primary sections. There's the desert, there's the Sierra, there's Northern California, there's Oregon, and then there's Washington. So those are the 5. I started out at the Mexico border on May 7th. Here's a picture of me standing in the middle of the desert at 3 p.m. with it over 102 degrees. Sometimes I'm just the pinnacle of intelligence. I don't really think I've ever experienced heat like I did the first 3 days on trail. Thankfully, things kind of cooled off as far as the desert goes, and I had overall pretty good weather in the desert. There's, even later into May and early June, it was pretty tolerable, but the first 3 days on trail were absolutely stifling. As far as a normal day on trail goes, you typically would hike about 20 miles, 5 to 6 days a week. And then usually the 7th day you'd go into a trail town and you'd restock. So you're carrying your food on your back for like usually 4 to 5 days. And then usually you have a water filter so that you can filter water. In the desert, water is difficult to find. We have an app called Gut Hooks that would help us keep track of water sources, and people would write in and leave comments and say, hey, the water's good here, blah, blah, blah. But a lot of it was like drinking out of troughs, drinking out of wells and pipes and small moving streams, or a lot of time trail angels, which are people that kind of help us out, would leave water caches places, which we were very grateful for. I got to hitchhike a lot on trail, which was actually surprisingly fun. I had nothing but amazing experiences with hitchhikers or people that would pick me up. A lot of time they were really nice to me and would give us like money or things like that. Here's the night the PCT tried to kill me and my friends the first time. We were on a 10,000 foot peak in Southern California called San Jacinto, and a storm blew in near the end of the day, and pretty much we had to camp it out up there, and we about all froze to death. Here's me the next morning, excited that I didn't meet God the night before. Here are some of my friends, LJ, Bilbo, and Hulk. This is the day after we all almost died on the mountain. And everyone on trail has a trail name. So mine was Beeves, but as I said, my friends' names were LJ, Bilbo, Hulk, Stitch, Hydra, Stout, etc. Usually people give you your trail name either based on something funny that you did or a characteristic about you, or, it kind of depends. There were a lot of amazing people who would host us on trail. A lot of the time we would get hotels, but also there were trail angels who would open up their homes in trail towns and let us stay there for really cheap. This man's name's Kenny. He's amazing. He would cook us breakfast every morning. He gave us really great margaritas and things like that at his house. So we stayed at his house for a couple nights. Truly great man. While I started the trail by myself, I ended up hiking with about 10 other hikers for the majority of the trip, which was a huge blessing. I think naively, when I started the trail, I thought I could do it alone, but I really would not have made it through the trip without the encouragement of other people. Sometimes you just need to commiserate with people, and sometimes, I think when you're having a good day, other people are having bad days, and when you're having a bad day, people are having good days. And so I really learned the importance of community, the importance of friendship, and just having teammates around you. Here I fell asleep on my shoes because I'm a literal piece of trash. And here we hiked on the LA Aqueduct all day in 40-mile-per-hour winds. Such a scenic day, really, it's really awesome looking at an aqueduct. So finally, after 700 miles and about 2 months of hiking, we made it out of the desert. We made it to Kennedy Meadows, which is the start of the Sierra Nevada mountains and is also known as a much more enjoyable portion of the trip. The desert was hot and very deserty, not surprisingly, but I don't know. I don't think the desert was all in a terrible experience. I don't know that I would do it again willingly, but I think the desert had a lot to offer. It had a lot of things that you wouldn't maybe have expected. And I think it was a really special time of the trip, just meeting people and getting to know, kind of getting used to the trail. The Sierra is beautiful. It's extremely difficult though, due to the extreme elevation. So almost every day we would get up early and we would hike up a pass that was like 13,000 feet. And then we would go down at the back half of the day. So it would be exhausting. It would be like 6 hours of uphill and then like 3 hours of downhill every day. We summited Mount Whitney during this period, which was amazing. So the PCT, if you've ever heard of the John Muir Trail, it's like a 300-mile section of the PCT that goes from Mount Whitney to Yosemite. And so the PCT and the JMT are pretty much the same thing for 300 miles. And so we got to hike that, which is a beautiful, beautiful part of the country. And here's me at Forester Pass. This is the highest point on the official PCT route. It's over 13,000 feet. The mosquitoes in the Sierra overall were pretty terrible. At night, there would literally be like 20 mosquitoes just sitting on the outside of your tent mesh, smelling your blood. Quite the feeling. Here's a house I hand built on the top of Muir Pass. And here's a picture of my clothes at about 1,100 miles. I'm proud they made it that far. Great pair of clothing. I wore long sleeves and a hood at all times because of the sun. Overall, I would say the Sierra was an amazing experience. It's one I would like to go back and do again when time was not of the essence. One difficult part about the PCT is that we're on a short time frame, as we need to make it to Canada by October, as after October 1st, you can get snowed on out there, and we actually did. Thus, at times, we really had to push ourselves to get miles when resting and enjoying the scenery might have been more enjoyable in what we really wanted to do. We next pushed into Northern California, which is quite the grind. We started doing 25 miles per day at this point, which usually requires like 12 hours of hiking per day with minimal breaks. And this is where it really became mentally fatiguing. For me and for my trail family. Almost every person in our trail family at this point was suffering through physical injury or just like mental breakdown. We all had moments where we were just like, we can't go on, and we had to push through. We also got to experience the state of Jefferson in this area, which I love. The state of Jefferson is a proposed 51st state that includes some counties in Southern Oregon and Northern California that feel underrepresented because they're very right-leaning and rural, and the rest of their states, Oregon and California, are very left-leaning. So in the 1940s, they proposed the state of Jefferson, which would give them voting representation, and it never came to pass because of World War II. But in all the cities and stuff, they still fly state of Jefferson flags, And, I even we met some guys that were out hunting and I asked them about it and they were very serious about it. Highlights of Northern California for me were Lake Tahoe, Mount Shasta, and the Castle Crags Wilderness. Overall, Northern California is hot and it's kind of just a sea of trees. Particularly after the Sierra, it's a little bit of a letdown. Not that there aren't pretty areas, but it kind of is a grind. After more than 3 months of hiking, we finally escaped the state of California and we reached the Oregon border, and we were very relieved. Oregon's known as a little bit easier section of the trail. Oregon has a lot less elevation gain. And so we were pushing in Oregon 30-mile days a lot of the time due to the easier terrain and the need to make up some lost time. Oregon overall was beautiful. At times, it was kind of boring compared to California and Washington. It's also just a lot of trees, and with the flatter elevation, there's a little bit less to see. So I think Oregon was also a grind for a lot of us because you're kind of out of the excitement of the Sierra and you're not to Washington yet, and so you're just kind of in this in between stage. Oregon had a lot of smoke. Thankfully, forest fires didn't affect our journey that much. We saw some forest fires, but in a lot of Oregon and Washington, we were walking through pretty heavy smoke, which was kind of a buzzkill. But when we got to Crater Lake in Oregon, it was completely smoked out. We barely could see it. Thankfully, I'd already been there, but it was kind of a bummer for a lot of our family. And but the highlights of Oregon are Three Sisters Wilderness, Mount Jefferson, Mount Hood, and typically Crater Lake. But as I said, it was smoked out. So finally, we made it through Oregon to Washington, and Washington, high key, in my opinion, is the best part of the PCT. You'll hear a lot of people rant and rave about the Sierra, but Washington the elevations are a little lower. That doesn't mean the hiking's necessarily easier, but the elevations are a little lower, and so the tree line goes up a lot higher on the mountains. So it's kind of like, in my opinion, the Sierra and like the Appalachian Trail or the Appalachian Mountain Range had a baby. It's extremely beautiful, extremely lush. The volcanoes and the mountains there are beautiful, snow-capped year round. And really, the North Cascade portion of the trip was probably one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. Particularly in the fall, a lot of the trees are turning yellow, and really, it's just it's truly breathtaking. The Cascades are really like an endless mountain range. Like, as far as you can see, there's just huge peaks, huge mountains. I wish that it was a little less smoky at times, and I wish that the weather was a little better. Here's some pictures from the second night that the PCT tried to kill us. We had hiked in rain for like 3 days. We were soaked. I don't know if I had anything. I barely had dry clothing at all to sleep in. And on top of that, when we woke up the next morning, it was snowing on us. So thankfully, we're only 20 miles from town, which I know sounds like a long ways, but for us, it wasn't. So we were able to hike in and get dry, but we were pretty scared that night of hypothermia, as it was almost October, and when we woke up the next morning, it was probably below freezing. So great times. I wish it was a little less rainy and a little warmer, but if I had a recommendation, I would say, out of all of the trail, go to northern Washington in the early fall, and it's really life changing. So to recap, I think the PCT is the hardest thing that I've ever done. As much as I don't think I stressed throughout this discussion of the PCT how difficult it was. I think naively going into the PCT, I thought that it was going to be a time where I could just go out and pray and meditate and find healing mentally. And honestly, hiking that much, putting yourself under that much stress and pressure to hike, it actually in some ways can make your mental health worse, surprisingly. I also think just being out in nature, as much as it's a really good thing for you, it kind of, in some ways, leaves you alone with your thoughts, and it kind of magnifies the things going on within your own soul and makes your emotions more present. So I don't think it was by any means it was easy or really healing, but I think that the main things that I learned were really that anything that you want to do, anything that you dream about, you can do if you're willing to sacrifice enough. If you're willing to give up your job, if you're willing to give up your summer, if you're willing to put in the work, you can do anything. I believe that God says that through Christ all things are possible, but it still takes work and it still takes sacrifice. I learned the importance of having people around you to pick you up and to push you and to support you. So where I'm at now, I returned from the PCT in October of 2020. And as much as I hoped the PCT would fix me mentally and help me figure out what I wanted to do with my life, it didn't, which is how things kind of go in life. Um, and so um, I know that going forward, I don't think that a typical corporate job will ever fit me again as far as what I want to do, working at a desk. Just the typical 8 to 5 schedule isn't healthy for me mentally or emotionally. So I started working at a ski shop in Vale in December of 2020. Amazing decision. I've absolutely loved it. I'm gonna have skied over 50 days this season, and skiing is just one of my most favorite things in the world. And truly, like skiing and being outside is kind of therapy to me. And it really helps me. And the schedule at my ski shop helps me mentally as well. And so it's a really good fit for right now. I think going forward, I'm kind of waiting on the next adventure. I think longer term, I want to start my own business and potentially live out of a van. But yeah, no, things are to come. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm finishing the season out here and figuring out what I want to do. But I don't envision myself ever going back to a life that looks even remotely normal, and I'm okay with that. So thanks everybody for watching. More videos to come. Thanks for sticking it out for me for close to 30 minutes. If you want more content, hit subscribe. If you don't. That's fine. But I really appreciate you watching. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.